Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you guys are having a great Saturday. It is so good to see you. I apologize that it has been about a month or so since I've last done a live stream, but I'm so happy to be here with you guys again. And hope you guys are off to having a fantastic weekend. It's summertime, so lots of people are out and about, maybe on vacation, maybe not. If you're on the West Coast, you're probably experiencing a lot of smoke. But either way, hopefully, you're having a fantastic time no matter what you're doing. But today we have a great topic for many people who are maybe just starting out and wanting to understand more about what a syndication is. Today we're going to talk about that. We're going to dive into what makes a syndication, what makes it good, how it's different than just normal investing, and what's different about it. What is it all about, right? It's a very complicated word, but it doesn't really have to be complicated because it's really, really simple. So let's just start out with that. What is a syndication? So syndication is pretty simple. It means that there's a bunch of people that come together that pool their money in one place to be able to buy something bigger than they could originally buy with just their own money. So let me frame a scenario for you. It's pretty easy for you to be able to imagine buying a duplex. You have a down payment of $100,000, $50,000, whatever it is, depending on what your market is, right? And that's pretty easy to grapple around. But what if you wanted to buy a $20 million apartment complex, or you know that it's for sale and you wanted to buy it? That's going to be a completely different story, because not, or at least most people don't have millions of dollars sitting in the bank ready to do this, right? But there are people out there that have 50, 100,000 maybe saved in the bank that are liquid and is ready to deploy or is being set aside for some sort of investment opportunity. So what you do is you take a bunch of those people, right? And you take their funds, you pool them together in a single place, and you're able to basically buy the apartment building that's much bigger than what you could normally buy by yourself, okay? So because these down payments are usually millions and millions of dollars, depending on what type of property you're looking at, you're going to need some help, okay? And so the basic structure actually looks like this. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and this is an image from my book that maybe will be a little bit helpful. On this screen, you can see that there are limited partners, right? A bunch of limited partners that delegate their funds to a small group of individuals known as general partners. And these general partners, they're the ones that are tasked with going out and finding the syndication, putting a business plan together, making sure that the property meets the return metrics that would be attractive to investors, and basically puts the whole thing together. They get the debt, they put that all together, right? And they make sure that it all happens. So this is what the general structure looks like, okay? And so you can see from here that there's actually two types of individuals involved in a syndication. There's the limited partners, which are the LPs, and then there are the general partners, which are the GPs. And right now, what I want to do is I want to go in and explain a little bit more about how that works and those defined roles, okay? So I'm going to go next here. And this is a nice little image that I was able to put together that kind of describes everything that goes on inside of a syndication as far as who does what. As far as a limited partner goes, mostly their role is to bring cash or liquid funds into the property. And for a general partner, they have a lot more to do. Instead of bringing the funds to the table, they've got to find the property, as I was talking about before, underwrite it, put the business plan together, arrange for the loan and make sure that it can close, operate the property well, and then, of course, make distributions, right, to all the partners, and then do the accounting and taxes, and then, of course, handle the sale and disposition when the time is right, so we can maximize the return on investment for all the investors together, the limited partners and the general partners, okay? And the way that I've broken this out, and you can get more about this in my book as well, is that let's say that you have a big commercial property, right? A big, and a commercial, I mean a multifamily investment, right? And it's a $10 million investment. The down payment's usually going to cost you about 20 to 25%. And then there's closing costs, and in some cases, some rehab, right, that needs to be done. So the limited partners bring all of the cash to make that happen. They bring in the funds to fund the down payment, to fund the closing costs, and to fund the rehab that are going to be needed up front. And the general partners, they technically are not bringing any money to the table, although you could make an argument that they're the ones getting involved with the inspections at the beginning and doing all of that on risk, right? So they're doing all that. But in general, a limited partner will bring $1 to the deal, right? And as they bring that $1 in, 80 cents of it is going to go to their equity. The full dollar, of course, goes into the property, but 20% of that, in this case, ends up going to the general partner in terms of equity for the dollars brought in. But they're coming in with sweat equity. They're doing all of these things for you to operate the property. So generally, as a limited partner, all you got to do is sit back and really collect the returns, as long as the property operates well. That's the issue, right? So you got to make sure you're working with great general partners that do really good work for the equity that they're taking there, okay? So of that down payment, let's say that the property is 10 million bucks, right? The down payment plus the reserves plus the closing costs equals 3 million, right? So if an investor comes in with $300,000 on the 3 million, they're going to be getting not the 10% of the equity on the entire property, because the debt doesn't count as equity. That's just a bank, right? So they'll get 10% of the entire kit and caboodle if there was no GP split. Unfortunately, there is. So someone bringing in a $10 million apartment complex, bringing in $300,000 on a $3 million raise, that's 10% of the cash requirement, but there's a split of 80-20. So that means that their total equity on a $10 million apartment complex for $300,000 is 8%. Okay, so that means that you're entitled to 8% of everything. So all the cash flow that comes in, 8%. The sale that comes in, when you make the sale or a refinance event, 8%. Everything in there is 8% of the total deal, okay? And so it's really simple. You can think of it as if you were going into business with your family or with your friends, and you go 50-50 on a duplex or 50-50 on a house. It's the same concept here. You're getting a slice of ownership for the amount of money that you're putting in. The only difference is that you have really well-defined roles where individuals are experts at their field, so they end up getting paid for sweat to be able to work hard for you to get the returns that you want, okay? And those are what are called general partners. Those people are the ones that are working really hard for you to get those returns, okay? So that's the general structure of a syndication, okay? The next thing I wanted to cover, right, is what makes a syndication different from singles? What makes it different from duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes, right? So when you're approaching a syndication, since you have the two layers of investors, there's going to have to be some more paperwork involved, because the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, helps protect limited partners, because limited partners have no control. The people that put the cash in, they are participating in the investment, they have equity, but the general partners, even though they're a smaller group, they're in control of the whole thing. That's the whole point of the investment, is that you're delegating your authority and your ability to invest and make decisions to someone who is a professional that's getting paid to do it, that has equity alongside you, because you want to have those people that are really good at it, that are investing with you, and you both have equity together. So whatever is good for them is good for you, okay? But there is delineations, because sometimes in the past there's been abuse. Some people have taken investors' money and then just run with it, or have taken that away. And so the SEC has kind of like been regulated to help protect limited partners that are putting money into these apartment complexes, so that that money is more safely protected, okay? Also, in addition to that, the syndications have a different life cycle. If you're going to be buying a single family or duplex or triplex, you have full control over it. So you may end up buying the property and holding it for many years if you want to, or you just buy it and then you turn around and sell it, right? The difference here is that you don't have any control as a limited partner. And the life cycle of those are generally 3 to 5, maybe even 7 years, depending on the type of business plan that you're looking to implement. And so getting into those, you can have a different type of life cycle that's different than if you were to do this on your own, okay? The other thing that's different too about syndicated deals is that you have preferred returns. So that means that if we go back to that chart again, or if we go back to that role specification call out that we were talking about before, limited partners, the cash investors, the ones that don't have control, they get paid first. So when all the returns come in, obviously, you get paid rents, and then you're going to have the expenses to pay. So you got to pay water, you got to pay the insurance, the taxes, the property management, all of that, right? And then after that, you got to pay your debt. Once you pay the debt, after that, it's pretty much a free-for-all, right? It's however the syndication structures the payments going to come out. And in general, there's something that's called a preferred return, okay? And a preferred return is something that allows the investors to have assurance that once the money comes in, it's coming to them first, before the general partners, the GPs, get paid. Because you want to make sure that whenever the people that come in to pay cash, right, to do this, they're taken care of, because that's the whole point of the investment, is to make sure the people who provided the cash are getting a cash return out. So that's one of the main things that we look at, is we make sure we set a nice preferred return, usually around 6 to 8% is kind of the industry standard now. So that means that whenever there's any cash flow coming out, the investors get paid that first. And then of course, the general partners, they get paid whatever is left afterwards. And then beyond that, if there's even more of an excess, that gets split among the 80-20 kind of structure that you saw after that. And that goes for everything. That goes for the cash flow and also for the appreciation when you end up selling the property, or even when you refinance it, right? Because remember, you're a straight owner. So anything that happens on the property, along with the other partners who are controlling it, that's also your equity as well, okay? And then the other thing that's different about a syndicated deal is that the lending is different. The lending is based off of the net operating income and not appraisals. Well, appraisals, yes, but the appraisals are also based off of the net operating income. And so the net operating income and the cap rates are these two competing factors that can help like get you the returns that you need, and also helps establish the value for the building itself, okay? And then the final thing I wanted to go over here, I'm going to share my screen one more time, is we're going to go over really quickly a successful syndication case study, okay? I want to show you what a really good syndication looks like. And as a matter of fact, it's actually kind of hard to find syndications that look like this. But either way, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So let's go back to the screen here. So this was what we saw before. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go next on this one, if I can get it to cooperate. Huh, never had this issue before. All right, let me just go here. All right, so let's say that you're ready to get involved in a syndication, right? And you have $100,000 that you're willing to put in. A lot of syndications, by the way, don't have that type of minimum. Sometimes it's 30, sometimes it's 50, depending on where you're coming from, right? So let's say someone wants to invest $100,000 with the assumption that they're going to get some cash flow and sale proceeds in the end. Here's a bunch of metrics here, but basically what you need to know is that the property's purchase price in here is 500 grand, right? And then the LP-GP split is about 30, and the total capital raise is about $2 million off of a $5.4 million property, based on, you know, just the way that this business plan is being put together, okay? So that means that your ownership on this particular property is about 3.5% based off of the split, and doing some fancy math based on how much money we need up front on the $2 million, okay? So Mr. Owner is 3.479% on here, Mr. LP is. And let's say that we hold 5 years, right? So the net operating income increases because you're able to implement your business plan, and then the cap rate just happens to compress by 0.5%. Generally, that's not good, and we can get into what that means a little bit later on. But I do just want to mention that this is something that we're taking into consideration here in some of these calculations. And oftentimes we don't like to assume that happens, but it does. And so because Mr. LP's equity stake never changed throughout the whole 5 years, right? It was still 3.5 and then still 3.5 in the end. There's debt pay down, there's cash flow, and there's also the sale that all contribute to the end result in how much money Mr. LP is going to be making in the end, okay? And I know these are a lot of numbers, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to go ahead and put together, show you a little bit of the actual cash flow here. So this is what it would look like, and I'm going to zoom in on this so it's a little bit easier to see. So let's say that Mr. LP puts in $100,000 in their contribution for year one to get that 3.5% ownership stake. Their cash flow, if the property's business plan has performed well, will be $8,580 in year one. And then in year two, just assuming some increases in rent growth, goes up each year. And then in year 5, there's the kicker, the $149,000 sale. That's the return of capital plus all of the appreciation. Kind of like if you bought a house, right? And then you held it for a little while, maybe your private residence. As long as the market keeps going up, you're going to get your original down payment back, right? So that's what that $100,000 is in here for. And then you've got the $49,632 extra. That's the appreciation. But that, again, that's not everything. You still had all of this extra cash flow, right? You had all this cash flow from years 1 to 5. And so if you take this out and you look at what the annual return for cash on cash is, you basically take this $8.6 thousand, and then you divide it by the 100,000, and that's an 8.6 cash on cash return, which is pretty good. That's much better than the stock market can do, and it's generally much more stable income because people tend to not want to kind of rustle where they live. You know, they want to make sure that wherever they're living, they're paying rent and they can still stay there. And then also you can take advantage of really good like market dynamics. You can go into markets that have excellent fundamentals and lots of demand. And that's one way to make sure that your cash flow stays strong and you have nice demand to be able to require or ask for rental increases, which means an increase in the bottom line, because as you get more rental income or you're more leaner on expenses and are able to control your expenses better, that 3.5% really adds up. Even though it's a small percentage of the whole thing, it still is a representative portion of the whole thing. So more income trickles down through to you as well, okay? And then, of course, we have this really cool way to evaluate investment performance. It is called the internal rate of return. And it's basically a really cool formula that takes into consideration all of the cash flows if you sum them up through each year, right? Like how much did you sink in, and then how much return are you getting and how quickly based on inflation. And that's going to be a number that you can use to help compare investment alternatives, either stocks or other syndications or single family investments. So it's kind of like a rate of return calculation, but this one's more sophisticated in the fact that it takes time value of money, including inflation, into account in years 1 through 5. Okay, so that is it. That's all I wanted to really share with you guys on this video, because I didn't want to give you guys too much info. I'm already running at about 16 minutes, and most people have an attention span for about 5 or 10, including myself. So I didn't want to go too far into this, but hopefully you can check this out again if you want to review the information. And so there's plenty of resources out there that we have on our website. And so if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or any issues at all, anything that you need to kind of like untangle or untackle, like how this whole thing works, I'm here for you. I want to make sure that it's crystal clear whether you're investing in a syndication or a single family home. Let me know. I absolutely am here for you so that we can get you guys started and get you guys out into the investment world and outside of your W-2s. And so, like I said, if you have any questions, reach out to us at elevateequity.org or click the link in the description to get a quick, really like easy ebook that kind of tells you all of the great advantages of having commercial real estate in your portfolio and all the great things it can do for you tax-wise and risk-wise and all that good stuff. All right. So that being said, that's all I've got to say, and I hope that you guys have an awesome week. Enjoy yourselves. Have a fantastic weekend. And if you have any questions, reach out. I'm here for you guys. Have an awesome one. Take care, everyone.